It's time for Baby and Toddler Instructions with host Blythe Lipman. Blythe is a nationally renowned infant and toddler expert who has over 30 years' experience helping moms and dads regain their sanity, teaching them how to survive, and giving them the confidence they need to be the best parents ever. From sleeping to crying to potty training to choosing a preschool and so much more. If you're a parent, Baby and Toddler Instructions is the show you've been looking for. Now here's your host, Blythe Lipman.
Well, good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever in the world you might be. Thanks so much for tuning in to Baby and Toddler Instructions. I'm your host, Blythe Lipman, and welcome to the show if this is your first time. Knights in Training, 10 Principles for Raising Honorable, Courageous, and Compassionate Boys. What a great title for a book, don't you think? So in just a few minutes, I'm going to have my guest, Heather Haupt, the author, is going to share her expertise about raising boys because, you know, it's a little different than raising girls. So maybe her next book will be about raising princesses. I don't know, but we'll have to talk to her, so I can't wait. First, update with the recalls. There were a couple of recalls this week. The Delta recalled the Strollers J is for Jeep brand cross-country all-terrain jogging strollers. So the Delta J brand stroller was recalled because the stroller leg bracket can break. Ooh, that's not good, posing a fall hazard to infants in the stroller. Also, a company called Demdeco recalled infant bibs and booty sets. The rattles sewn into the booties can detach, and you know where they go, right in the mouth. So check out my website, mybestparentingadvice.com. I have all the latest recalls, and you can see what they are. You know, the companies are great about either replacing something, giving you a refund, or if you need a kit to repair something. You know, a couple of weeks ago, Target recalled a 3-drawer dresser because it was a real tipping hazard. And I know they will fix that. If you have anything, don't try to fix it yourself. And if you have any dressers or things that sit on tables, make sure that they're mounted to the wall with the proper brackets. You know, you think your kids aren't going to climb on things, but I'll tell you, once they hit that toddlerhood, they climb and they run, and accidents can happen in 2 seconds. So we want to keep them safe. So again, mybestparentingadvice.com for the latest recalls. Also, there were a couple interesting articles I wanted to share with you today. You know, I love Babbel.com. If you haven't gone there, take a look. With our crazy politics happening, you know, it's hard to remember your kids are listening. We can't forget that. And it can be pretty frightening to a little one that really doesn't understand. And I'm not going to talk about politics on my show. You know, everybody has a right to whatever they believe. But if you have children, you have to be careful what you say and you know, how you say it. So there was an article, it says, I forgot for a moment that children are listening, which originally appeared on Tales of an Educated Debutante called Political Children. Anyway, this article says, I'm so sick of politics, I want to close my eyes and turn everything off. Friends that I love and adore despise those they love and adore. It doesn't seem worth it to me. Women from all sides, children from all sides hold signs. Women hold signs. Everybody's holding signs. Seems like it's about hate. You know, debates are heated. So the biggest part of this article said you have to remember children are watching. All of us travel on our own set of beliefs. It's the burning fire that fuels our thoughts and ideals and beleaguered arguments. Yet we never stop to consider the origin. You know what? All of us were once impressionable children, and we heard things. You know, I'm going to paraphrase here because you hear things that somebody says, and if you're a little one, you don't quite understand it. So this mom says, I screwed up. I shared my views, tainted by my own upbringing, and offered them to my children in such a way that to balk would seem impossible. When my oldest son spat out one of the candidates' names attached to a derogatory adjective yesterday, my face burned with shame. So I want my children to understand my story, rooted in matters of the heart and history, but not drink the punch. I want their childhood to be a time for exposure, thinking, questioning, and figuring out what they believe is right. And I made a mistake, and I offer it up as a showing of love. My beliefs shall not rule the mental landscapes of the 4 innocent souls that I have gifted. So, every day there's a new tweet, every day there's a new something, and the football players and the taxes and the bills. Just be careful if you're going to talk, to another adult and your children are in the room, especially if they're a little older. Be careful what you say and how you say it, because they just don't understand. A perfect example, and this always makes me laugh, when you put your child in a new dress, a new shirt, and you say to them, I want to see the back, turn around. Well, they turn around in a circle because that's what they hear you say, turn around. They don't know you just want them to turn around and show me your back. So anyway, just a little heads up in this day and age where it's so crazy. Be careful how you speak in front of your children, because they're like little sponges and they hear everything. So I thought I would share that. Also, there were trending baby names in 2017. This always makes me laugh. This is the endangered baby names of 2017. It says parents have opted for short and sweet names for their newborn daughters, with Ava, Isla, Mia, Evie, Lily, and Ivy. And also shortened names for their boys, Freddie, Alfie, Theo, Archie, Charlie, all making the top 20. Could this trend continue for the rest of the year and into next year? So the endangered baby names were Bertha, Cynthia, Janice, Mildred, Dorothy, Karen, and for boys, Ian, Frank, Clarence, Edmund, Gus, Bertram, Clive, Roald. All these names, it's really funny because I think lately we don't see names, so much after foods. We haven't seen a lot of apples lately. I remember that from years ago. I did see an interesting thing on TV where a family's name, their last name was Ayer, A-Y-E-R, and the father named his son Billion, so his name was Billionaire. So when you name your children, just remember they have to live with that name forever. My name is Blythe, and I have to tell you, I hated it as a kid. I wanted to be like everybody else. It was the strangest name, and people made fun of me, and they couldn't say it. So I thought I would share that list of the endangered names. Also, since my guest is going to be talking about knights in training, which are boys, thought I would share a few tips for the grown-up knights in my book from Help, My Baby Came Without Instructions. I do have Help, My Toddler Came Without Instructions. My chapter called Daddy Loves Me, The Manly Art of Baby Care. I have to tell you, when dads take care of babies or toddlers, they may not do it the same way that moms do. And that's okay. So if you're a mom, you have to remember, as long as the baby is happy, as long as the baby is fed, as long as everything's fine, you know what, don't get upset if they don't take care of the baby or toddler the same way. So a couple tips for my knights that have already been trained. When changing the baby's diaper, make sure you have everything ahead of time, the wipes, the ointment, and always have a second diaper with you, because especially if it's a little boy, sometimes when you're trying to get that diaper on and they're exposed to the air, you know what happens? They wet the diaper, and then you need a second one. Also, if the baby is older, give them something to hold in their hand, because I can tell you, especially when it's a messy diaper, those hands go right down there, and then you have a lot to clean. And also, as a dad, you know what? Don't be afraid to sing silly songs and dance and play games. Dads are different than moms. When we see a baby, we go, oh, isn't the baby cute? You never have heard a father go, oh, look at that cute little baby. Well, maybe you have, but anyway, so I just thought I'd share those tips from Help, My Baby Came Without Instructions. I have hundreds of tips that can help you with children from newborn up to 4 years old, not anything medical, and you can get them at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble. They're on Audible. If you like to listen to them, you can go to my website, mybestparentingadvice.com. They're easy to read, parent-tested, pediatrician-approved tips, and they're in list form. So I know they all work for one baby. Every baby's different. So you go down the list, pick the one you think that will help on that particular day, whatever's going on. And anyway, thought I would share that. So let's see, what else do we have today? Well, let me tell you a little bit about my guest. She's written a terrific book. First of all, her name is Heather Haupt. She's written a book called Knights in Training, 10 Principles for Raising Honorable, Courageous, and Compassionate Boys. And boy, you should see the picture on the front of the cover. It is absolutely, they're two little knights. They're not her children, she said. So let me tell you about her. She's the mother of 3 knights in training and a spunky little princess. She wants to raise children who will make a difference in the world. As an educator, writer, and popular conference speaker, she inspires parents to pursue a loving and holistic approach to education and parenting. Heather has taught in a variety of settings, ranging from preschool nature classes all the way up to college biology labs, and now homeschools her 4 children. She lives in Dallas, the Dallas area, with her family, and writes at www.heatherhaupt, that's HAUPT.com. Check out her site. I mean, this book is great, and, you know, before I introduce Heather, I'll tell you a really funny story. We talk about nights in training. I had a friend, a dad, that took his little girl to the playground, and Mom was all excited. She got to go get her hair done. Sandy was at the hairdresser. She said, I'll meet you at the playground with her little girl. And the little girl was 3 years old. She was having the best time. She was, you know, on the monkey bar. She was on the swings. And all of a sudden, she did a somersault, and she didn't have any underwear on. So this dad forgot. You know what? He must have taken her potty, and he didn't put her little underpanties on. But she was having a great time, so, you know, Mom was freaking out. Anyway, so boys are different to raise than girls. And the nights in training, maybe he needed a little more training with the baby. So let me say good morning to Heather. We're going to have a commercial in just a few minutes, but I do want to welcome you to the show. Heather, thanks so much for being here today. How are you?
I am doing well. It is such a delight to be on with you today.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here because I have a son and a daughter, and they couldn't be more different. They actually couldn't be more different, and I'm very proud of my grown-up knight, who's a grown-up now. But, you know, for parents just having children, especially if you have 2, they're usually all different. We can talk about that after the break. I want to know about your children. But, yeah, you know what? I wrote my books, Help My Baby Came Without Instructions and Help My Toddler Came Without Instructions. And my books and your books really help because, you know, none of us have the instructions, and we have to figure out how to do the best job and keep everybody happy and keep ourselves sane. So the music is coming. Stay with us. When we come back, we will talk to you about your book, your children, and your wonderful expertise.
We'll be right back with more Help My Baby Came Without Instructions. It's Baby and Toddler Instructions with Blythe Lipman on TogiNet. We'll be right back right after these.
It's words you never heard.
Well, skunks are making the news again. Seems everyone has a skunk story. A friend of mine was dozing on the couch on her patio when she felt something furry brush up against her hand. She thought it was her cat until she smelled a terrible odor. I was petting a skunk, she told me. What's a word for shocked? Timey-wimey. In Colorado, a wildlife officer was called to help a skunk whose head was stuck in a peanut butter jar. After tugging for 10 minutes, they finally freed the critter and it ran away without spraying anyone. Guess that was a fair trade, otherwise known as quitter for quatter. In Minnesota, it's illegal to tease a skunk. What's a word for teasing a skunk? Tanning, wardling, and downright foolish.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Word.
It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Annette Hammond.
Thinking of food as an enemy is a common misconception. Food is not the enemy. The adversary is portion sizes and food choices. Even if you're trying to lose weight, you really can eat anything you desire. It is just how much of it that you eat that's the problem. If you keep 80% of your diet good, nutritious, low-calorie food and save 20% for the foods you crave, you will be on a sensible eating program. Food is to be enjoyed and to bring pleasure to our lives. We get in trouble, though, when we make bad food choices too often. And the next thing we know, our diet is really messed up and we're consuming too many foods that are high in calories and low in nutrition. You need to plan and make an effort to buy good, wholesome food. For the Fitness Minute, I'm Annette Hammond, keeping you healthy, happy, and fit.
Welcome back to Baby and Toddler Instructions with Blythe Lipman on TogiNet, the hour for all moms with little ones to come for great advice, encouragement, and great ideas for all new parents. Now, back to the show with Blythe Lipman.
Well, welcome back to Baby and Toddler Instructions. I'm here with my wonderful guest, Heather Haupt. She's written Knights in Training, 10 Principles for Raising Honorable, Courageous, and Compassionate Boys. Heather, what inspired you to write your book? It's great. I love your book.
Yeah, well, it came out naturally with my kids. I have 3 boys, and when they were very little, they were, I think, 6'4", 6'4", I decided to read about knights. And so we read our first book about knights, and they were just mesmerized. They went and grabbed their little foam swords, and they're racing around doing battles, and it's just getting crazy. And I'm looking at them going, okay, we are going to take a moment, and we're going to talk about chivalry, because I want my boys to treat the women in their life with respect. And that's really all that I thought chivalry was about. And so I started researching, and I realized it was so much more than that. It was an entire way of living. It was an entire way of living that really marked how a boy was trained up from boyhood into manhood. And it was so inspiring. And when I started reading about the historic code of chivalry and what was involved with that, my mind was just swirling with potential ideas. And I thought, what if I challenged my boys to become knights in training and to pursue this chivalry challenge? And so out of the 19 elements that were pulled from the historic French epic poem Song of Roland, I took out 10 that I felt like were really timeless and applicable for children specifically. And I just printed them up on a cool font, burned the edges so it sort of looked like a scroll, and I put it up in the house, and I gathered my boys around. I said, we are going to do knight training. And they were like, with swords and everything? And I said, yes, with swords and everything. And I said, but most important, a knight lived by the code. And so I started reading through these aspects of the code. And I said, you're going to love God with your heart, soul, mind, and strength. You are going to obey and respect authority. You are going to stand against injustice and evil. And you should have seen them just stand upright. And they're like, yes, we will take that stand. You're going to defend the weak and protect them. You're going to respect the honor of women. You're going to refrain from the wanton giving of offense. And I could see their little faces. They're looking at me like, what's that? I'm like, manners. You're going to have manners, and you're not going to offend one another. You're going to speak the truth at all times. You're going to be generous and willing to share. You're going to persevere and finish the task at hand. And then you're going to do everything with excellence. And what was so magical was to watch their eyes just take on this sparkle. And they were excited. Their imagination was lit, and I found as many books as I could on knights from the library, and we read about it, and we started pointing out in the picture books, like, oh, here's an example of chivalry in action. And then I would turn to them and say, I want to see you guys exhibiting chivalry in your lives. Did you know that you can do that right now, even as boys? And that's what started us on this journey. And that was about 7 years ago now. And then, it became a way of living, and it was so exciting. And so when I had the opportunity to really put this down in writing, I became really excited because this provides sort of a framework to embrace everything that makes boys so uniquely boy. It sort of embraces their wild side, their longing for adventure, their desire to be the hero, and it gives it purpose. And it really brought us to be on the same team with our children, because our children were understanding, like, oh, we're here to train them, and it's their job to be trained up so they can go out and change the world. And so that is why I was so excited to put this into writing, to give other parents sort of a handle on how can we make the most of this season of boyhood and prepare them to go out into independence, to go out and really change their communities.
You know, I can see where they'd be so excited because boys love a challenge. And what a
Yes.
great positive challenge. Different than I'll give you 10 minutes. Can you brush your teeth before the timer rings? Or, this is these are life lessons, and wow, how great. So your oldest was 12 when you started this?
No, he was 6.
Oh, he was 6. Okay.
So 6, 4, and 2. So they were so little, and yet they really took to it. And I remember my sister coming over a couple weeks after we had issued them the challenge, and they go racing out because she pulls up and she has, a toddler on her hip, and she's wrangling out the infant car seat. And my boys go racing out to help her. And I mean, one of the boys comes strutting in with this big flower diaper bag because he's helping his aunt out. And they were just so excited. And they're looking at me going, Mom, we're respecting and honoring women, and we're helping Aunt B because she needs help. And so just to see them make connections with places that they could help, places where they could be the hero of the moment, was really special.
And it's interesting, too, because a lot of times boys get such a bad rap, little boys. They talk about farts, and they talk about things that they think are funny, and, a lot of times they don't understand, and they don't help. It's hard. I have to just put this in here. It's tough to get a toddler to do something, a 4-year-old to do something for you. They drag their feet, and they don't want to do it, and boy, to start with a positive challenge and to teach them, I think that's great. They ran out to help your sister.
Yeah, and I didn't even prompt them. And there are times where I prompt them to do things, and there are times where they're on the lookout, like, oh, where can I be the hero? And so they will step into those situations unprompted.
So in this
which
crazy
is just
world,
amazing as a parent to not have to be nagging them all the time. And that's the power of this, is it instead of nagging them about their misbehavior or their naughty behavior, you're painting a vision for how their behavior can not only impact others, but also garner respect. And that's something that's really key for our boys, even at a very young age, is they want to be respected for their strength, for their energy. And when we're constantly like, sit still, don't do that, don't do this, stop lying, stop saying bad things, it can be sort of demoralizing if that's all they're hearing. And so what I loved about this is it gave me a framework for how to be positive and how to lay out good expectations that they want to rise up to meet.
So, you know what, I'm thinking with all these wonderful things and such great positive reinforcement, and you had a little one, a 2-year-old, you said, with all the principles, how did you start? Did you do one at a time and, talk about respecting others? Or how did you do it? Did you do it through each situation? Or did you make a chart?
Yeah, well, when they were really little, I made a chart so they could have just sort of a visual representation. So I put up the Knight's Code of Chivalry. Only one of mine could even read it. But they were so mesmerized with the idea that we would just sort of periodically review it. And so I did an initial, here's the challenge, here's the whole thing. And then what I would do is I would unpack it one at a time. And we would focus on one at a time. So each week I would be like, okay, we're going to really unpack this one. What does it mean? Where do they have opportunities to do it? Where are they seeing it in the books that we're reading? But then over time, it became real organic. If we were reading a book, they would point out oh my goodness, that boy right there is defending and protecting the weak because they stood up for their little sister or something like that. So they started to recognize it and point it out. And so it became more of an organic thing once we had laid that initial foundation. And so it was sort of part each week, just for me as a mother, it helped to go, okay, I'm going to focus on this one this week.
One at a time, okay.
Right. But then things come up in life. And that's the beauty of parenting, is we can just sort of go with the flow as situations rise up.
Well, let me ask you a question. There's a question with why shouldn't we want to raise typical boys? What's a typical boy in this day and age? Because it's different than years ago.
Yeah, I think, and when I think when we think of that, we think stereotypical boy. So how are boys depicted in the media? And so we see that boys are depicted as rude and crude, oftentimes lazy, and they're just disengaged from all that matters. And we're seeing this, and research is actually backing a lot of this up. Fewer and fewer boys are going to and graduating from college. More are living at home with parents far into adulthood in greater numbers than their female counterparts. And so I know that I was looking at this, especially when my boys were little, and going, okay, I know I don't want that, but what can I be doing now that prepares them so that this is not their determined reality? And that's where I started going back and going, okay, well, we're going to set expectations. I don't want to squash their sense of adventure when they're little, because I think a lot of times we tell little boys, sit still, stop talking, pay attention, don't fidget. And we sort of shut down their desire to put on a superhero cape and jump off their bed, and those kind of things, because it's not tame. And that's the thing with boys, is they just have this built-in desire for adventure. And so what we need to do is recognize that and harness it and not squash it. So they're like, oh, well, there's nothing to do but just sit here and wait for someone to tell me what to do, wait for someone to take care of me. And so even with our toddlers and our preschoolers and our young ones, we want to be encouraging independence. We want to be affirming them when they contribute to the house. And so I tell a story in the book about how even when my boys were very, very little, the minute they could toddle around, I had them dispose of their poopy diapers. And I would say, oh, thank you so much for using your muscles to help mom. And I was affirming their contribution to the family.
To help, and toddlers, positive reinforcement, and toddlers, and all of us, we like somebody to say great job, and to start at such a young age is so important, because first of all, they love to help, and second of all, to start with the positive reinforcement instead of the no, 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 no is really important. But I have to say, no, 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 because we're going to have a commercial break in just a few seconds. And when we come back, I had somebody just send me an interesting question that I'm going to ask you. So stay with us. We will be right back. I'm with Heather Haupt from Knights in Training.
We'll be right back with more help. For help, my baby came without instructions. It's Baby and Toddler Instructions with Blythe Lipman on TogiNet. We'll be right back right after these.
Baby love, my baby love, I need you, I need you.
It's words you never heard.
A new study finds the happiest couples sleep the closest together, as in less than an inch apart. A survey of 1,000 couples found that 86% of those who kept such close perimeters reported they were satisfied with their relationship. Only 66% of couples who slept 30 inches apart or more reported being completely happy in their marriage. What's the word for getting up on the wrong side of the bed? Metutalipia. Another predictor of relationship happiness is touch. While 94% of couples who made physical contact throughout the night reported a happy relationship, just 68% of couples who kept their distance did the same. What's the word for the semi-conscious state between sleep and wakefulness? Hypnopompic.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Annette Hammond.
Now that school has ended and summer begins, it's time to think about what your children and you will be eating. It's easy to buy junk food snacks for them that they love, but I want to urge you to think again and use this opportunity of new schedules to eliminate or at least drastically reduce your family's consumption of junk food. Trans fats, sodium, hidden calories, genetically modified ingredients are all good reasons to give up processed junk food. There are also phosphates, which are the food additives that doctors are linking to higher rates of weak bones, chronic kidney disease, and premature death. Do you want to eat that? Choose instead to eat fresh fruit like nectarines, peaches, bananas, and berries. Nuts are delicious, as are fresh vegetables and whole grains. Don't settle for junk food. For the Fitness Minute, I'm Annette Hammond. Like us on Facebook.
Welcome back to Baby and Toddler Instructions with Blythe Lipman on TogiNet, the hour for all moms with little ones to come for great advice, encouragement, and great ideas for all new parents. Now, back to the show with Blythe Lipman.
Well, welcome back to Baby and Toddler Instructions. I'm talking with my wonderful guest, Heather Haupt, author of Knights in Training, 10 Principles for Raising Honorable, Courageous, and Compassionate Boys. And boy, that's so important. But Heather, I did get an email question. A mom asked me, do you think it's okay to let boys cry? What do you say to them? Because they're these strong knights that are defending everything. What about when they cry?
Well, a lot of that is contextual. And it's going to be child specific, and that's where we as parents need to be tuned into our children as individuals, and we need to sort of discard, I think, that idea of boys never cry. We need to hold that lightly. Now, I've had kids that are all over the spectrum, and we've had one boy who we worked with on, you can't do this. You know, if you cry over every little thing, you will have no friends. And that's not what we do. And you need to, it's okay to cry when something really sad happens or if you're really, really hurt. But if you cry all the time, then no one is going to believe you. And so that was a situation where we had a boy who just turned on the tears for anything and everything. And so we stepped into that situation and said, no, you can't cry right now. Because he was crying all the time. But we want to value feelings and emotions and personality differences. And so this one child is very empathetic, and he's a deep feeler. And so he will cry more than the others because he feels for people more than my other boys do, which is pretty amazing because on the empathy end of things, boys tend to struggle a lot more than girls do. And so that's where we want to be careful and look at context, but it's definitely okay to cry, and it's definitely okay for children to cry because there's a lot of big emotions that they are coming to grips with. And so I think for a parent, it's helping them figure out why they're crying and help them process those emotions.
You know, and it's interesting what I think about. Of course, sports comes to me. My son played soccer when he was 4 years old. They had a little mini soccer team. And you would hear so many fathers saying, shake it off, buck it up. And you'd see this kid, you know, it's a toddler at 4 years old, and they'd cry for whatever reason. And I would always feel bad as a mom thinking, well, they're crying for a reason. You know, are you teaching them that it's not okay to feel? And that's what's so scary because we're all human beings. Don't you agree?
Yes. Yeah, and it's just that careful balance. Like, you don't want to do the whole buck up thing. And yet, on the other hand, I've found, like, my husband and I would sort of have this policy if our kids would fall down and scrape their knee, instead of, like, sometimes as mothers, our propensity is to be like, oh, no, and to sweep in, which makes it more of a drama than it was. And I've seen situations where kids aren't crying, and then if a parent totally freaks out, then they're like, oh, and it's almost traumatizing the way we as parents can sort of hover and react. And so that's where it's this whole, I don't know. I think sometimes fathers can bring sort of a sense of, it's okay, you're going to be fine. And sometimes it goes over too much and you're going, oh, they're just little kids. And then sometimes I think it's good to have that balance of mothers like swooping in and being caregiving, and men sort of coming in and going, it's going to be okay, you're going to be fine.
Exactly.
And there's times where that can go too far, and there's times where I think sometimes our sons need to hear that a little bit.
It's
absolutely, depending on the age.
It's absolutely the balance, because like I was talking about political things, you know, that our kids are watching us, and, you know, it's we have to be careful what we're saying in this crazy world with the politics and everything else. And, our children are watching us all the time. So if you have that parent that goes, oh my God, he fell down. And, kids fall down all the time and they skin their knees. But there has to be that balance. I mean, what about letting your kids do things like watch Frozen, or it's a boy and they watch a movie that's kind of a girly movie. I mean, I can tell you, this is funny. My 2-year-old grandson, when I've taken him to play, there's an indoor playground here. He always goes for the doll, and he always goes for the pink stroller, and he likes pink. And it's funny. My daughter said one day, "Boy, if his dad saw him with all these pink things pushing the baby doll on the pink stroller," and I thought, you know what? So what? I mean, they're little, but what do you think about exposing your kids to everything, to Frozen, to, I don't know what else.
Yeah. I think with the whole pink stroller thing, my boys always loved kitchens and baby dolls. And I would always just sort of be like, oh, you're going to make such a great dad one day.
Yeah.
And so I didn't overemphasize it, but I also didn't we all play in kitchens. Everybody pushes a stroller. I mean, if you're a dad. And so I would sort of add that oh, you're going to be a great dad one day, and not freak out that, oh my gosh, the color is pink. I think that's silly. But when it comes to media, I think it's really interesting, and media portrays messages. And I think sort of with the whole idea of we freak out with pink, why do we freak out with pink? There's nothing bad with that color. On the other hand, movies and media portray messages. And so we need to be looking and going, is this a message that we want our kids to hear? So I actually do mention the movie Frozen in my book because I limit my kids' exposure to movies, and this is one that I limit it to. And the reason why is because that movie does not depict men well. And so in that movie, men are depicted as either lazy, bumbling fools or as power-hungry, evil people. And I'm looking at that going, neither of those are options that I want for my boys. And for that matter, when I look at my daughter, I go, I don't want my daughter to think that those are the two options. Do I want this or that? You don't want either of those. Those both will end poorly. And so just sort of looking at media, especially with our boys, I think they tend to portray fatherhood as sort of a joke. And fatherhood is no joke. We need fathers.
No,
and so we want to raise up our sons to be good dads one day, to be involved fathers. And so I look at media through that lens, going, are these the messages I want my kids to hear over and over and over again? Now, we've all watched Frozen. I thought it was hilarious. Not hilarious. The songs were beautiful. It was very moving. And so both my sons and my daughter, we all enjoyed it. But we limit that. I don't want them to be taking in those messages on a daily or weekly basis, if that makes sense. So it's sort of looking at what are movies saying, and is this, because if that's all they're hearing, then that's sort of what they're going to absorb. The Lego movie is another one I mentioned in my book, and my kids are obsessed with Legos. Legos are everywhere. It is the bane of my existence. But the Lego movie is one that it doesn't depict men well. The main character is just sort of this bumbling idiot accidental hero who only happens to save the day because his female sidekick comes in and does most of the rescuing for him. And so I sort of look at that and I cringe and I go, can't they work together to save the world? That would be cool.
Wouldn't that be cool in our whole world?
Strong female,
not just the Lego movie.
Strong. What?
I said, wouldn't that be cool in our whole world and not just the Lego movie?
Right. No kidding. Let's work together. We will be stronger if we do that. And so those are things where we'll watch it. They'll gush about the Legos, and I might, depending on their ages, sort of point out, gosh, it sort of bummed me out that he did this, and you guys are capable of so much more than that. And
And I think you have to be careful with the young toddlers, because when you have a young toddler, I know, again, back to my grandson, there's certain movies that he likes to watch. And they're educational, and some not so much. Their Mickey Mouse Club is still on, which I think has always been good if you're just watching it as a cartoon. But toddlers tend to become obsessed with movies, and they watch them over and over and over again.
Yes.
And that's the issue. Make sure you watch it with them and see what it's about. And if it's not appropriate, like you're saying, if it's giving the bad message, unless they're too little to understand, you have to be careful.
Yeah.
You say,
if you're watching a show over and over again and the kids are brats, you can't be surprised when your kids start emulating the bratty behavior because that's what is being normalized. And so that I just make the call for, let's be careful with what we're taking a steady diet of. Because messages matter.
They do, and the kids take the messages and they're watching us. And, if you do allow your children to watch movies, sit down with them and watch it. I know we have to cook dinner and we have to do things, and it's easy to put on a video so that you can get your things done. But make sure it's something that you know what it's about, because as you say, the messages in some of the movies are just, they're not great messages. Or even, we can look at the other side too. I know we're talking about boys here, but even for women, some of the movies that are out that depict women are just, I shake my head and think, well, what I say is it's not very nice. I go, a man must have written this one. But
Right. We're more than what we look like. We have a brain.
Yeah, it was interesting. I just have to say this, we do have to work together, and I don't know the whole big hoopla about This Is Us, which is a program that I don't know if you watch. I really like it, but there was a really interesting message last night with one of the characters that was afraid to do something, and I'm not going to say it because whoever's listening, maybe you didn't watch it and maybe you taped it. So there was an interesting message for a grown-up in there that was afraid. So pay attention to what your kids are watching and pay attention to what the message is. And we're going to have another commercial break. So today is National Chocolate Milk Day. So maybe during the break we should all have some chocolate milk. Every day is some kind of a national something day, so I thought that was pretty funny. And hey, I could have a glass of chocolate milk, although my coffee's sitting right here. So please stay with us while we talk to Heather Haupt from Knights in Training. We will be right back.
We'll be right back with more Help, My Baby Came Without Instructions. It's Baby and Toddler Instructions with Blythe Lipman on TogiNet. We'll be right back right after these.
It's words you never heard.
Did you know 1/3 of population suffers from bad breath? Several years ago, a New York City doorman was actually suspended from work because people were complaining about his bad breath. Other words for foul-smelling breath are halitosis and ozostomia. So, what are common causes of ozostomia? Coffee is a problem because it's very acidic, and bacteria reproduce faster in an acid environment. Candy and gum contain sugar, which is also a problem because sugar feeds the bacteria that cause bad breath. Alcohol is another culprit. What's another name for cheap wine? Plonk, slip slop, or stinky bus.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Annette Hammond.
Improper posture can lead to low back pain, but exercise can alleviate some of the pain. Walking doesn't cause lumbar pain, but because you are doing repetitive motion, it can make it worse if your posture is incorrect. When you do not stand properly, the ligaments and tendons around your spine can become overworked and cause pain. Inflammation and arthritis surrounding those nerves can also cause pain in your lumbar area. Tight hamstrings and hip flexors can cause your posture to be distorted, and that can put pressure on your lower back. So be sure to keep those areas flexible with effective stretching. To alleviate low back pain, keep the muscles of your core strong. When you are walking, running, or doing any form of exercise, pull your belly button to your spine and keep your core muscles tight and engaged. I'm Annette Hammond. Like us on Facebook at Fitness Minute with Annette Hammond.
Welcome back to Baby and Toddler Instructions with Blythe Lipman on TogiNet, the hour for all moms with little ones to come for great advice, encouragement, and great ideas for all new parents. Now, back to the show with Blythe Lipman.
Well, welcome back to Baby and Toddler Instructions. We are up to the last part of the show. It always goes so quickly. I say that every week. I'm here with Heather Haupt, the author of Nights in Training, 10 Principles for Raising Honorable, Courageous, and Compassionate Boys. So before we go to talk a little more about this, where can my listeners get your book?
Anywhere books are sold. I've seen it in most Barnes & Nobles I've been in, or online, Amazon.com, wherever you buy books.
Are you on Audible by any chance?
I am, yes.
Yay, okay, great. So, you know what? If you have a boy, you should read this book. If you're pregnant, everybody should read this book. It's a great book. Anyway, do you have a favorite parenting tip since you have 4 children that you want to share, one or two?
I do, and once I zeroed in on this, it radically changed my parenting. Because I had 3 boys really quick. So when my 3rd boy was born, my oldest was 3.
Wow,
so
you were busy.
Life was coming at me fast, and laying out expectations is the biggest thing. And once you figure that out, it makes everything different. And so I was running into situations where I wasn't laying out my expectations to my kids, and we were walking into situations, and they were just being normal kids who they don't know what proper behavior is, and so they were doing things that were awful. I remember them mowing down a little old lady at the library and shouting and screaming, and I'm mortified, and I'm gathering them around and just walking out red-faced. And the next week I gathered them around and I said, okay, here are the rules to winning at the library game. And my boys are all listening rapidly. They're like, rules? Winning? They want to win. And I laid out my expectations. We whisper. You do not run. If you need my attention, you have to walk over and put your hand on my arm. And every week when we went to the library, I repeated my expectations. I quizzed them. What are the rules for the library game? And so I found that if I do that, if I prepare them in advance when we're walking into something, it changes everything. And I still do that with my 13-year-old, 11-year-old, 9-year-old, 6-year-old. Well, she'll be 6 tomorrow. And it changes everything. And they appreciate knowing what the expectations are because they don't want other people looking at them going, oh my gosh, what's wrong with your kids? Because they feel like they're saying, what's wrong with you? And no one wants that. And so laying out expectations changes everything.
You know, and you say it right in your book with a Stephen Covey quote, treat a man as he is and he will remain as he is. Treat a man as he can and should be and he will become as he can and should be. And it's true because your kids, they do rise to the expectations because it makes it easier when everybody knows what to expect. And also it makes mom and dad happy. And you know what, that's a great parenting tip. So I have to ask this as a mom. Do you set expectations for yourself when you're going to go do something new or not new or just every day when you get up?
Yes. If I don't set expectations for myself, I do nothing. And so, yeah, I will when I wake up in the morning and I look in the mirror, I'm like, you will be a caring, engaged mother today because in this distracted day and age, when I get stressed, I reach for my phone, and which is just, it's a cop-out and it's not good. And so, yeah, I talk to myself in the mirror in the morning and go, you will be engaged. You will remain calm. You love these 4 children that you've been given, and you will cherish these. And so I talk to myself. I speak positive affirmations and go, this is the kind of mother you want to be. And that really helps. So, yeah, I will set expectations for motherhood. I will set expectations for what I want to accomplish that day. And if I don't do that, it doesn't work. So maybe that's why this works so well for my family.
You know, I can't agree with you more, because setting your expectations for the day, otherwise you bumble all over, and it is really easy to reach for our phones. You know, or whatever we do, you know, reach for the cookie or the chocolate, or if we don't set the expectations. I read something wonderful this morning online about a mom. It was an article, and every morning she asks her children, what are they looking forward to? So everybody starts out on a positive note, and everybody, you know, one little one said, we're going to have pizza for lunch, and another one said, I'm going to play soccer, you know, or I have a new barrette in my hair. It was such a great little article. And, you know, it doesn't just have to work for the kids or the boys, or what are we looking forward to every day? And it's funny, because I started thinking about it, and the first thing that came to my mind was, I can't wait to talk to Heather and do my show, because I love doing my radio show. And, you know, what a great thing for all of us.
It's helpful in hindsight, too, because we fail and we bungle things. And I remember I had a big fail moment a couple weeks ago, or at least I felt like it was a fail moment as a mother. And at the end of the day, one of my kids came to me, and he was like, you know what my favorite part of the day was? And I'm like, what? And in my head, I'm like, I know what my least favorite part of the day was. And his favorite part was my least favorite part, where I totally thought I had failed as a mother. And yet he didn't take my failing moments in that moment, and I definitely had failed. He had positive memories, and it readjusted what my expectations were. And I realized, relationship is what matters, not outcomes of projects. And, oh my goodness, my kids are going to remember the good things. And,
you know,
and they're not they're going to forget some of the areas where, mom messed up there.
You know, and you'll be amazed, because when they're grown-ups and you're sitting around a table eating or having a holiday or whatever, you will be amazed at what they remembered and how they remembered it. And you will your heart will be smiling, because you'll think, you know, I didn't even think they noticed that. So let me ask you, if you have one takeaway from your book, what would you like to share?
That takeaway is that life is challenging. Parenting is challenging. And yet when we embrace this idea of night training, it really has the power to change the way that we view these parenting years, and the way, and it alters the way that our boys view their childhood years. And so I would just encourage you, training is a process, and training takes time. And just as it took the entirety of childhood to raise a boy up into knighthood back in the Middle Ages, it's going to take the entirety of their childhood to prepare them for adulthood. It doesn't happen overnight. They're not going to be mature human beings. And so to just remember to embrace that it's going to take time, and that you are there. They are worth the investment of our time, our energy, and our love.
That's a great takeaway. And, you know, with the training, I'm sure, you know, I have to say there'll be setbacks. They will act like boys and have temper tantrums. And, you know, when kids learn, they don't do things that you don't like because they're trying to make you angry. They're testing, and they're trying to discover the world. And your training, your nights in training is so great, because it gives them such a start and such a beginning. And I love the fact that everybody knows what you're going to do. The expectations are there. Nobody's saying, well, I didn't know you should do this. And you know what? You're a great mom. You're such a great mom and a wonderful author. So maybe you'll be doing princesses in training because you have a daughter. But thanks so much for being on the show today. You're just great, and I love your book, and keep doing what you're doing, because I'm sure you have great kids.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. So I will say goodbye, and I'd love to have you on again. So you take care, have a nice day, and enjoy your fall. And drink some chocolate milk.
Wonderful. Yes,
all right.
We'll do chocolate milk.
All right. Take care, Heather. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye. Wow, what great tips to help you raise your adorable little boys into men. Next week, my guest will be Dr. Eli Adler. Dr. Adler will be talking all about his wonderful new app to help your little ones reach their milestones. Don't forget to go to Facebook and like, and please comment on my pages, My Best Parenting Advice, Baby Instructions. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Pinterest. I'm on Instagram. I put recipes. I put pictures of the food that you can make for your kids, and I try to go on Facebook and do videos with my tips every week. So please do that. And if you want to be a guest on the show, contact me via mybestparentingadvice.com or go to toginet.com and listen to some of their other great shows. Great hosts, wonderful shows. You know what? As I said during the interview with Heather, I love doing my show because I get to meet people like Heather. I have such great guests, and I've learned so many things from them. We teach each other. I'm the baby and toddler expert, and I have tons of tips, but they teach me as well, too, just like we're teaching our children. So here's a little humor to end today's show. Some days you feel like raising kids is a walk in the park. Jurassic Park. I wish I were a little kid so I could take a long nap and everyone would just be so proud of me. Boy, isn't that the truth when you finally get your kids to take a nap and they get up and you give them hugs and kisses and say, great job, you took a nap today. And I love this one. This really made me laugh. Parenting is a lot like the bar scene. Everyone's yelling, everything's sticky, it's the same music over and over, and occasionally someone throws up. Boy, doesn't that say a lot about parenthood. So enjoy being a parent. You know what? Take a little time each day to sit with your little one, read a book, if you like to watch something on TV, and sit there and talk about it, and create some expectations, create a schedule, let everybody know what's going to happen each day. And you know what? Just enjoy. So I want to wish all my Jewish parents, friends, and colleagues a happy, healthy, and safe New Year. Friday night is the holiday Yom Kippur when we fast. So happy, healthy, safe, and fun New Year. I want everybody to have a great rest of the week. And again, if you want to be my guest, please contact me. I love my guest. And if you want to be a host, it's really fun to be a host. Contact toginet.com. And if you need special tips, I do in-home. If you live in Arizona, I do video and telephone consults. I've been doing this for years. I have lots of easy-to-use tips, parent-tested, pediatrician approved. Or if you have a question, you know what? Email me as long as it's not medical. I can help you. And I can make your life easier. So whether you have knights in training or princesses in training, enjoy each day. They grow up so fast. And before you know it, you'll be reminiscing about what they learned. Have a great rest of your week. See you next time. Bye-bye.